And now, coming to you live from the City of Angels, Los Angeles, California, it's the Sheena Metal Experience with your host, Sheena Metal.
Hi, and welcome to the Sheena Metal Experience, only on Parapod TV. I'm Sheena Metal. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an energetic healer. I'm an interfaith minister. I am a 29-year talk radio host in Los Angeles and beyond. I'm a creative and performing artist and a paranormal survivor. And I come to you live from my home in Southern California every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Pacific time. We are live. This show is about spirituality. It's about creativity. It's about humanity. It's about passion. It's maybe most importantly about service. It's about becoming and then maintaining being your best you in this big, beautiful world, and then inspiring others to do the same. And it may be my show. It is the Sheena Metal Experience after all. But what it really is, always and forever, is it's your experience. And every week on the show, I bring on people that I love and adore, and they share their stories. I share my story. We share our stories, and then hopefully something in that resonates with you to maybe share your story with somebody else. My guest today is one of my very, very dear friends. I do love and adore her, and she's got a beautiful, wonderful voice, and she's been on many of my radio shows. It's her first time here. We were co-hosts on a podcast together for some time. And just recently, she was a guest on my brand new radio show with my co-host and friend, Diane Katz. It's called Side by Side on iHeartRadio. And we were talking about the loss of your mother. She has recently lost hers. I lost mine 8 years ago, but this show is sort of celebrating the anniversary of my mother's passing. So I thought she'd be a perfect friend to hang out with me on this show. Please welcome the wonderful Isabel Gallardo. How are you, my friend? It's so good to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. It's my absolute pleasure. The last time I saw you was at your mom's celebration of life, which was so beautiful. And it was so nice to be surrounded by so many other people who love you, friends and family. And you spoke so beautifully, and it's hard, right? As you were speaking, I was remembering when I had to get up at my mom's and speak, and you just think you're going to burst into tears and start laughing at the same time. So many emotions at once. True.
And you prepare notes and you practice, a few times in the mirror because you want to sound polished and hopefully not embarrass yourself in front of your family and loved ones, and make your mom proud because you want to speak eloquently in regard or on behalf of your mother or your loved one, right?
Yeah.
There's no getting out of it.
Yeah, you did. And I think, my mom, when she passed, her whole thing, my mom was so interesting because everything in my mom's life was completely planned until her passing. And she made no plans. And I kept saying to her, what do you want to do? She's like, I don't care. I'm gone. I don't care. It doesn't matter what you do with my body. She didn't want to be buried because she thought that wasted the earth. And she didn't want to be put in the ocean because that terrified her. And she didn't want an obituary because she thought that was depressing, and didn't want a funeral because she thought that was depressing. And I said, well, what am I supposed to do? And she said, cremate me, scatter me anywhere, and throw a big party. So that's what I did. And I know it was what she wanted. And I really thought when I was at your mom's that it's exactly what your mom would have wanted, right? There was food and friends and people were having fun. Even though it was a serious day, it was also a day of joy. And I think that maybe some people want a heavy funeral, but my mother didn't. And I certainly don't think your mother wanted that. I think she wanted people to have fun.
Well, it certainly was. And I think that knowing my mother growing up, who is a very conservative Catholic, I expected a more somber, traditional, burial service. And to my surprise, she did not want to be buried. My mother's homeland was Chile, which is another country, right? It's South America. And, the idea of taking her to Chile and burying her was just not realistic. And she wanted to be cremated. She wanted a celebration of life. Well, we talked about music. She was like, play some Barry Manilow. We laughed about it, and we just had a completely different experience. And honestly, it was lovely, and I hopefully, she was looking down and just smiling at everyone that was just there to celebrate her.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
loved her so much. I thought she
Thank
was
you.
so amazing. And I was really blown away and excited about the fact that so many people that were there, you could tell she was sort of like an extra mom to them. That people loved her like they were her family. And I think my mom, like, I don't think anybody ever knew my mom's name. Everyone just called her mom. It was like she didn't have a name. And it was so important for her to just sort of love and nurture everyone that was around her. And from the first time I came to your house, your mom made me feel so welcome, like I'd been going there for 20 years. And I just think that was her thing, right? And I could tell when people were speaking about her at the memorial, I'm like, this is what she just made everybody feel like they were another one of her kids. And there's so many people who aren't fortunate like us to have had the kind of bonds we had with our own moms. They have, a distant relationship with their mom or their father or both. And they are looking for that kind of love. And I could feel like a lot of them found it with you and your mom. And I think that's so beautiful.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And I think, you're also someone that's very welcoming. And I think that also fosters that kind of intimacy, right?
Right.
My mother, had that ability. And so I think that she helped other people feel comfortable. And you kind of touched upon that about the relationship that others have. And the mother is, generally speaking, such an integral part of our lives and our society, right? We're not raised in a community with various caretakers. Generally speaking, we have one mother, right? So that relationship is so important. And for those of us that are fortunate enough to have that bond, it is very special. And I feel very grateful, and I'm very happy that I was able to share my mother with others, and that everyone was able to have a little bit of her.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially for those of us that had lost ours, it was nice to know that she was out there as sort of that kind of a figure. And there was just like, my mom would have said there was an impishness to your mom. My mom would have said she had a fairy spirit, which from an Irish woman is a huge compliment. There was just sort of like a twinkle in your mom's eye. And I think it just made you feel good to, and you and I became friends at kind of a very difficult time in my life. So maybe I wasn't my best me all the time. And she was just such a positive spirit. And I think that, I don't know about you, but I'm so proud to have been my mother's, because I'm in such awe of how amazing she was. And I hope every day that a little bit of her rubbed off on me. And that's all I've ever wanted, was to make her proud, and to hope that I picked up a little bit of her humility and her humanity, because she brought so much to the world. And my mission after she passed, which I didn't even know was going to be my mission until she passed, was to carry all the things that were good about her that infused into me to the world, and to make other people feel the way that she always made me feel and made everybody feel it. And maybe I've always done that, but I think when she passed, it became a very conscious effort and mission,
That's beautiful. And I definitely agree with those sentiments, right? Where I definitely feel more so now, unfortunately, than I did when my mother was here, to embrace so much of not only the lessons that she shared and instilled with me, but I think so much of those values that she just, represented. And I feel that she's really pushing me to be of greater service, to demonstrate and show, my resilience and my character. And so I know that my mother is channeling that through me. And I know, and like you were sharing, we met at a time maybe where we were each, kind of experiencing different challenges.
Yeah.
Grief is not linear.
No.
It comes at different times and in different ways. And we just have to embrace that, like we are, the grief of our mother, and also celebrating as well, celebrating our mothers at the same time, because I don't, for others that may be struggling with that loss, yes, it's a loss, but I also want to celebrate who my mother was and all the beautiful experiences and memories that I have of my mother,
Yeah,
and of my family as well.
absolutely. It's interesting what you said about how you're realizing it more now than you did when she was alive. I'm not somebody who has regrets or feels guilt. I don't really believe in those things. Although I'm Irish, so I'm genetically predisposed to guilt, but I do everything I can to not feel that way. But it is kind of a strange dichotomous life I have lived, in the sense that I feel like, as much as my mother was my everything, I didn't really become who I was meant to be until after she passed. And I don't think it had anything to do with her. I think it had to do with the fact that the lessons I learned in her passing were what sort of catapulted me into my next phase of service, and her encouraging me from beyond to do those things really were what sort of pushed me into the next realm of my life. And sometimes I look back and I think, oh my God, I am now exactly who I was always meant to be. And I hate that she's not here to see it. But then I have to remember she is here to see it. And that, I think, sometimes it sort of blows our minds. Our little human minds get a little blown by that, right?
Right. I definitely can resonate with that, because it's almost as though my mother had to pass for me to embrace a lot of those qualities that I already have, but maybe I just didn't see, or I wasn't ready to see. And at this stage of the game, it's like, I got to get on with it. Let's go.
Yeah.
But time is life. Life just throws situations and growth at us at the time that it's supposed to come. So if this is what the universe is wanting me to learn or wanting me to see, then so be it. And I'm just going to, like I shared, embrace it and just take it. And I can't really have regret or overanalyze it, because that's not going to serve me.
Exactly. Right. You just have to go with it. And when I start to get weird like that, I have to sort of have a talk with myself. I don't know if you know this, but I drive down Pacific Coast Highway every night. It's a thing, like, since I moved back here, and I'm back here living in my mom's home that I grew up in, where she's everywhere. I literally do these videos at her desk. I'm sitting at her desk right now. And every night I go and I look at the ocean. My best friend lives on the other side of Huntington Beach, kind of where you are. And I live on the northern side, so it's very easy to hop right on PCH and take it. And every night I drive, I put music on and I think. And it's been such an amazing cathartic thing for me. And so sometimes when that thought comes in my head, then I have to stop and go, no. It's, everything happens for a reason. This was the next phase. This is how you were supposed to do it. Don't let yourself go there. Because I think sometimes our little monkey brains go at us, and that's where the doubt comes from, and the anxiety and the feelings like we did it all wrong. And we have to sort of push that out of the way and remember. And I'm lucky that my mom guides me from where I am. And I know yours is beginning to do the same and will continue to. Yours has only been gone much less time than mine. But they'll start to they'll work you through that. No, that's not it. Remember you did this. Remember you did that. And then you have to stop and go, okay. It's sometimes I think that what we learn from them, I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but my mom used to say this thing when I was growing up, and it always embarrassed me, that she thought she was put on the earth to raise me so I could do good things. And, she would say it in high school to my theater teacher, and I'd be like, it was always kind of this thing. So after she passed, I was cleaning out her office, and I found this journal that she had written to herself, and even put on the front, don't read, but wrote to herself, don't read. And I thought, well, it doesn't say I shouldn't read it. And, so I did. And it was a lot about her struggles with depression, and how she had a lot of loneliness in her life, and she didn't feel like she fit in, and she didn't really know what it was all about, the pain and the struggle. And I mean, these were things my mom would not have just told you. Like, she was so strong and so positive, but inside there was this, she had a very bad childhood, and there was this stuff inside of her. And then she said the thing again about she knew I was here to do things. And I kind of pondered for like a month. I sort of walked around the days and that kept resonating in my head. And one day it came to me that she had it right, but she had it backwards. The truth was that I was put on the earth to spend the first half of my life soaking up her teachings so I could spend the second half of my life sharing them with the world. And I think that was really when my real service came into play, was that everything that she had ever taught me, it was like almost 49 years of my life was a tutelage, right? For me to become ready to become the teacher. And she would never have said that. She probably would have even not acknowledged it. Because when I used to tell her that everything I was because of her, she would say, honey, that's so sweet, but I honestly think you just came out this way. She never would take credit for it. And, but I really believe that. And so I think that sometimes we wait for our service to find us, right? And I can feel with you 100% that yours is about to come like a freight train. And your voice really getting out there. And I know I've always told you that, even when your mom was alive, but you know, when we're caring for our moms, that's our thing. That's our full-time thing. And that's where we're supposed to be at that time.
Did you find that when you were caring for your mom that it was, in a way, not negatively, but it was somewhat of a cloud where it prevented you from really being able to find that intuitive, direction that you needed?
Oh yeah, I felt like I was just surviving. I mean, I was doing radio then, so I couldn't come down here full time because the station I was working for would not allow me to do remote broadcasts. So I was literally driving back and forth from Los Angeles to Orange County, like, 1-2 hour ride plus 2. And I would take some days off from there and come down here, and then I'd go up there and somebody would watch her here. And I just felt like I was in a cloud the whole time. Like it was just sort of like being in a place of stasis where my only job was to keep her alive from day to day. And, did I pick up the diapers? Did I get the prescriptions? There was no like, look at me, I'm on my existential journey right now. Right. It was like I just held my breath through that time. And I would not change that for the world. And I know so many people, and you probably do too, that regret in hindsight that they weren't there for their mother, that they didn't make that choice. And one of the only things my mother asked for that I promised was that I would be holding her hand when she passed. And I'm so glad that I was there, and I'm so glad that I did. And I don't regret any of that time. And I'm
very, very lucky because my mother was in the hospital and I made the decision to bring her home. And I conscientiously, stated to myself in my mind and out loud, I said, my mother is not going to pass in the hospital. She came home. I was holding her hand and I was by her side for those last days. And it made a complete difference to have her home. And I think that just knowing that she was at peace at home and not in the hospital, I think for her and for me and hopefully for her, was just more calm and more peaceful than being in a more sterile environment, which hopefully helped her transition. But I have recently been feeling that my intuition has been so much more clear, and my vision has been coming into fruition in terms of the direction that I need to go. So I know that is also something that my mother has been helping me channel now that
absolutely
the energy has been able to kind of just get a little bit more focused.
I agree. And you'll find with these very big souls, that your mother had a very big soul, a big presence, that they love when they pass. Because first of all, I know my mom didn't like the old lady body and she was thrilled to get out of it. And then they've gone through so much of their lives with however many years of slowly you taking care of them, right? Because we become their parent. Right. And then when they pass, they can be the strong force for us again. And they love that because they get to be helping us again. And so they'll come in with all kinds of advice and encouragement. I think the first maybe 6 months after my mom died, I mean, it was just like having a cockatoo on your shoulder. It was just, she just gave me constant advice. She has her own stuff that she does where she is now. So she's not with me 24/7. But checks in constantly with me whenever I need her. But yeah, they're thrilled to be able to switch that. I think because they know how hard it is to care for someone, and they know what it's like. My mom was a goof. She wanted to die in the hospital. I said, look, when the time comes, she didn't know she was dying. So we never had like that talk, but I would always say, someday when the time comes, do you want to be here? She's like, honey, I want to die at Hoag Hospital. So sure enough, that she got her wish. So everybody should have their wish. That felt like safety to her to okay. We should all have exactly what we want. But yeah, I know one of the first things she said, maybe about 45 minutes after she passed, she kind of came to me and it was like, oh, I'm so happy where I am. Thank you for letting me go. And she really felt like she felt when she was around 50, which was kind of when her best years, I think, were probably 45 to 65. That was when she really felt good. So she sort of presents at that age, which was like when I was in high school to college in my 20s. So she sort of presents at that age, and man, she's more powerful than ever. So that's nice. It's nice to be in contact with them, right?
It is.
Your mom came back quick too.
She did. I definitely had right away. I mean, within a few days when I went to church, I was already receiving messages from her, which I was a little bit of a skeptic, but it was so powerful and overwhelming that I couldn't help but just receive it.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say that, excuse me, that since her celebration of life, there's been a little bit of a transition in terms of the energy in the home.
Yeah.
It's a little bit hard for me to assess and determine what that is. I almost want to, I almost feel like she's left, like she's not as present. Like maybe she's now it's okay for her to continue her journey.
Yeah.
Not really.
I don't think she's left, but I think she is now pursuing her journey and everything she has to take care of at home. And so she will come back a lot, but now she's not there all the time because she was really kind of on 24-hour watch with you for a while.
That's how I felt. Like it was constant. And now it just feels like that's diminished a little bit. So there's a little bit of a shift in the home.
Yeah.
But I definitely still feel her presence, and my dog Chub Chub still sleeps in her room, and I still find him there in his dog bed in her room of all the places he could be. So I definitely know that she's there kind of watching over us.
Absolutely. And watching over him a lot too, because he's first of all, he can see her as she's much more accessible to him than she is to you because animals just get it. I mean, it's so much easier for them to connect to the other side than it is for us. Because we think we're so smart. We talk ourselves right out of an experience. And also I think because he's older, she's kind of caring for him and checking in on him all the time. And, they were kind of old folks together, the two of them.
They were. He's going to be 15. And I know that I'm hanging on to him, and
such a good boy.
Such a good boy. And I know that there's an energy there with him as well, that, a very strong connection to him. And I'm sure everyone says that about their pet, but he is definitely my soul.
He's very special. I saw him going around at the celebration of life and having his personal time with every single person there.
Yeah, he was grandma's boy. So I think it's really interesting, the relationship between animals and humans, and when someone passes and that energy, and there's definitely a lot of truth to that on a spiritual level. You may not be able to scientifically quantify it, but there's absolutely truth and healing to all of that.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but my dog passed the same day.
No, I didn't.
5 hours after my mom. Yeah. I think she was like, oh, is grandma gone? Okay, bye. I think she just didn't want to live without grandma. So yeah, my mom passed at sunrise and my dog passed like at noon. So yeah. And I didn't know. I just went home to the valley from being in Orange County where my mom was passing, and I found her in not a good place. And so I think she just wanted to go be with her. And then, it was hard to be upset about it. I mean, shock upon shock, right? It was like a scary day. But I knew she wanted to go be with my mom, and it was hard to say, say no. I mean, I think it was great that they had each other to sort of dance across the Rainbow Bridge together, because they were such buddies.
Wow.
So, it was a good thing for both of them. And she was 17 and a half. So, I mean, she was old. She's a Pomeranian, and sometimes they live to be like, 140, but she was older. And, I just think I don't think she wanted to be, that was the message I kept getting. She just didn't want to be on the earth without my mom. So, okay. I mean, they know what they want, right? And then they know, she knew that for whatever, I mean, I had a cat at the same time too. So she knew my mom needed her more than I needed her. And so she made that choice that day. I think the vet cried when I told him, but I think only an Irishman can make the vet cry. But yeah, so it's interesting, the connection that they have. And then my mom came to the house. My mom was not ambulatory, and my townhome in the valley is on 4 levels. So my mom had never been to my house since I had my newest cat. And she showed up in the bedroom and scared the cat. And I thought, what is going on with Molly? And then I remembered that Molly had never seen her before.
Oh,
so it was a new energy showing up in the house. And Molly was like, who's this? And I'm like, oh no, it's okay. And she had to kind of get used to my mom. And then she was fine once she did. But, and it's so interesting, right? All the animals, they come back to visit each other. They're so much cooler about it than we are.
It's funny because my mom also adopted my friends' animals. My friends would bring over their dogs.
Yep.
My friend Dana would bring over Archie, her little Frenchie. He's a puppy, and he would jump, and she would call him Monstro because he was a little monster, and he's just a puppy, but she loved him. And my friend DJ would bring over Diego, and he'd take naps with her. And it's just so funny how she would embrace all of my friends' dog, and they would call me. They're like, "Oh, do you want me to bring over, so and so, and to see your mom?" And so they would call me to bring over their dogs to come see my mom. I certainly questioned whether or not I was going to lose Chub when my mom was getting really bad. I was like, "Oh no," it certainly crossed my mind. So I'm very sorry that happened, that you had that experience.
Okay.
That's tough. But 17 and a half is a long life. And I know that Chub at 15, he's lived a full life. And I do, my mom was 93.
Health problems before that. That's the thing. It's interesting. I always laugh about my Irish relatives, because I think I was talking to your brother about this at your mom's celebration of life, that it's like they're healthy, and then they die. And so that was kind of her life too. She had never had a health problem. Never. Nothing was ever wrong with her. And then the day my mom died, she decided, I'm going. And literally it was heart failure. Her heart just gave out. And my mom's same thing, out of the blue. My mom never had a heart problem. One day she just stopped breathing and her heart gave out. And then the dog, the exact same thing. So I know they wanted to be together. And I don't mean to sound all happy about it, like it's a great thing.
Of course. Right.
But I understood how much they needed each other. And that was so important, that they had each other to take the journey with. So we all make our choice when we're going to go, right? And that was their choice, and you have to support someone's choice. I don't feel like that's Chub's choice. He knows how badly you need him.
Yes.
Because you guys are buddies, and he needs to be with you right now.
Oh yeah, he can't go anywhere. No.
I think he misses her in a different way than humans do. I think he misses her like he understands how happy she is where she is. So not the same kind of grief, the way that we grieve, because I don't think they understand the difference. They don't put a difference in somebody who's embodied and somebody who isn't. And they're actually really right. We're the ones that get all hitched up on it, and it's not that big of a deal.
I think definitely people view grief in different ways. And I've had to reframe my perspective on grief, because I really believe that my mom is at peace. She wanted to be reunited with her parents. She is no longer suffering. It's one of the worst things in the world, in my opinion, to watch your parent or to watch a loved one suffer.
I agree.
So it's obviously it's difficult to lose someone you love, but I'm okay with, her being at peace, because it wasn't right, to see her in the condition that she was in. And at 93, she lived a full life,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so she was being called. It was her time. She asked for it. She literally was asking God to take her. So I'm at peace with it, and I know that it's what she wanted. So how can I fight? How can I resist that?
Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, when there was no other outcome. So I told the doctor, I said, no more IVs, no more tests. For what? There's no outcome. Why are
Right.
you continuing to take blood? And there, enough. Her hands were bruised. I said, let's bring her home. I mean, at that point, there wasn't going to be a change. So there was no point in that.
Right.
Let's just, give her some comfort, and let's see let the nature take its course.
Right. Yes. The same thing for me.
Yeah.
She asked me I said, what do you want? And she said, I want you to get me out of here.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah.
I would hope if it were me, somebody would do the same for me, because
absolutely.
I think that you should have a choice with what you want to do, and how you want to live your life, and that means also how you want to end your life. And,
oh yeah, please, right now.
Some people want to hang on by their toenails till the very, very end, till only one cell is left alive, and that's their prerogative. But my mom just wanted to go home and be happy. And they said when they started the process of letting her go, they said, look, it could be months, could be hours, it could be months, man. It wasn't even 3 hours, and that soul shot out of her body, and she was gone. But I'll tell you a weird thing. I know I haven't told you the story, but I have told it before on the air. We have a weird thing in our family where anytime anything really good or really bad happens, it always rains. And I laugh because I think I've had 9 surgeries in my life in California, and it has rained for every single one. Like anything monumental, when I fall in love with people, when I break up with people, when I graduated from high school. And it's a weird enough thing if you live in a normal place, but in California, it's an anomaly. So the night they took her to the hospital, it rained, but then she didn't pass. And then they put her on a BiPAP machine, and it seemed like she was getting better. And then I got a phone call she was going to pass. And I thought, well, this is impossible because it hasn't rained. So it's nighttime, and it's overcast, and she's in the bed, and they've given her the Merced, and they're going to get the morphine. And right as she's about to pass, the clouds part. She's at Hogue, so her room is overlooking the Newport Beach Harbor. The clouds part, and this ray of sunshine comes in, and it literally hits her in the solar plexus. At the same time, I saw her soul fly out of her solar plexus, and then she was gone. And then the clouds went right back, and it was overcast again. I mean, it was like something out of a movie, like the 10 Commandments. It was the most bizarre, amazing thing you've ever seen. So then now she's gone, and I get in the car, and I'm driving home, and I'm thinking, I don't understand. There's no rain. What is happening? There's no rain. So I drive to the San Fernando Valley. It's like 11 o'clock. I find my dog laying on the ground. I call the vet. They make an appointment for noon. I get her put in her carrier. And that day was the day of Nancy Reagan's funeral. And the way my townhome is set up, like all our garages back up to each other, and people must have been watching it, because all of a sudden, out of everybody's windows, I could hear these bagpipers playing Amazing Grace and playing Danny Boy. And right in the middle of Danny Boy, the clouds pulled in out of nowhere. It was sunny in the valley, and it just started to pour. And that's when I knew my mom was really dead. I'm like, and there's the rain. It's real. And I took my dog to the vet in the biggest rainstorm you have ever seen. And after she passed, I walked out of the vet with my carrier in my hand, my empty carrier, which is the worst, right? Yeah. And it was sunny. The rain was gone, and it never rained again for weeks. So for me,
very symbolic.
Such a reinforcement from God that's what happens. Mom takes the rain with her, right? So
Yes. Yes.
um, it's
That's very special that you
it
observed that, that you were in tune with it.
it was very, very, very special. I will never hear a bagpiper play Danny Boy again that I won't think about that. And I didn't even know about the funeral until later. I just couldn't figure out why this bagpiper was, because we're so Irish, so Danny Boy is like the
Yes.
thing.
The
Why
thing.
that was coming out of everyone's window. I'm like, what is happening right now? And then this enormous thunderstorm that lasted about 2 hours and then disappeared. It was the most bizarre thing. But I think we have to go with things like that because there are signs and there are symbols, and these are things that happen. And I find that every year something very special happens, a little gift, and it's every year on her birthday, the anniversary of her death, and Mother's Day. Something very interesting happens in my life. And I know it's like a little extra gifts from her. My friend calls it sky candy. It's like little gifts from above.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because I have a wind chime that a very dear friend of mine gave me and I put up in my backyard, and it hadn't gone off all day. And the moment that I started to speak about my mother at the celebration of life,
I remember. Yeah.
and I wasn't aware of it because I was speaking and I was trying to address everyone. Apparently, when I did start to speak at that moment is when it started to go off. Because after when I was done, everyone told me, were you aware that it started to go off right as you were speaking?
It's loud.
And apparently there were two birds that were out. They were perched over on part of my fence, and they had come down. I wasn't paying attention to that because I was, again, so focused. But they were saying how when I was speaking, how it started to go off, and the birds, and I thought that was really, interesting and symbolic. They were saying how it was my mom.
And look for the birds, because birds are little transmediums, and they will let spirits come through. You might just find one staring at you out of nowhere and wonder why. And it's just your mom visiting, right? Because her mission now is to try to prompt you towards your next level of service. So she can help and guide you from where she is, And are you finding, like, now that it's been not quite 2 months, right? So you're starting to get a little bit out of that haze of when someone first passes, that you're starting to feel spirit prompting you towards what your next thing is going to be?
Yes, I definitely am. I'm definitely seeing that, feeling that, and pushing me toward getting more into alignment and co-creating, which I was sharing a little bit about that with you.
Yeah.
And it's definitely urging me or prompting me to use my voice, kind of realign my voice, and I think when I say co-create, I think it's more redefine what I want my voice to be in this next chapter of my life.
Yeah.
Where I maybe haven't been able to really, kind of sing the way that I've wanted to.
Yeah. Why do you think up until now you haven't been able to?
I think that for a long time, for the past 6 years, I was, so preoccupied with taking care of my mom. I think that was one. And I also think that while my mom was alive as well, I was always her protector and her nurturer.
Yes.
I think from the time I was young. Yeah. And I think to some degree, subconsciously in the universe, that was somewhat holding me back. And I think that's a generational thing that I have to kind of work out. So there's almost as though there's a release now for me.
Yeah.
I know it's probably like kind of a complex, kind of.
No, I agree 100%. I feel the same way. I was going to say that earlier, but I really believe that my mom was a soulmate, and we were kind of always in this together, and we sort of pulled each other through this world. And I think I had to be in this earth alone to really be able to fully go into service and not have to worry about her. Not that she wasn't a completely independent person that took care of herself, because she
Of course.
was,
Mm-hmm.
but we made an obligation to each other to take care of each other. And I took that obligation very seriously, and she did too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as much as I focused on work and I focused on other things, my main focus was always on what was going on with her, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And she also told me, this is an interesting thing. I think I was maybe 9 years old. People have sort of chastised her for this, and that always makes me a little angry. I don't know what we were talking about. We were in the car, and she turned to me and she said, I just want you to know that sometimes people, they change, they die, things happen, and you have to remember that you have to learn to love and rely on yourself. And I said, okay. And then I said, well, what does that mean? What about you? And she said, honey, I'm 33 years older than you. I'm probably going to die before you. And you have to promise me when I die that you won't die too. And I said, okay. And then I would always say, but what if I die first? And then she would say, oh, I'm absolutely going to die. And then we would laugh. But that was one of the things as she was passing that night in the hospital that I had to keep reminding myself, that I made a commitment to her my whole life, that I would not wither away and die when she died. Although I honestly just thought the universe would just take me, because I didn't know
Right.
what purpose I had when she wasn't here. Like, we were a team. What do you do without the other part of your team?
Right.
But then I remembered that I promised her that. So I stayed very much in service. And I'm very lucky that I had 3 giant artistic projects lined up when she died that were already in play, and one of them starting 2 weeks afterwards. So I sort of had to be in service, and it got me through that first 3 months afterwards, which I think is the hardest part. But I just, even now, sometimes I tell myself, remember, you told her you're going to stay here and do your thing. And, I'm so glad that she told me that, because it really kept me focused, that I made a commitment to her that I would thrive after she was gone. And I didn't really have a choice, but I mean, I guess we all have a choice to thrive or not thrive. But I made a promise to her I would do something with my life. And then after she passed, that translated into I'm going to do something in her honor for her because she passed, because that's how I can give back, and that's how I can keep her memory alive. And I founded my nonprofit, raisingthevibration.org. And because my mom always thought humans needed more peace and love and kindness and unity. And those are our cornerstone words. And just being able to go and speak about who she was and what she taught me and keep her memory alive helps the grief process so much. And I think so we're taught to do the opposite, right? We're taught when death happens, we're supposed to shut down, we grieve, we pull inside. This is the worst thing we can do. We should be out there honoring them and living the life they would want us to live, and sharing their teachings with the world.
Well, I think you're right. There is definitely like a time frame component where someone passes and you're, supposed to grieve, and then it's over, and then you're supposed to move on. You know,
no, that's
and that's really silly. I have a friend that passed away a few years ago, and it's kind of understood that it's done, and people don't really want to talk about it, and I still need to talk about it, and I still need to grieve that loss, and it's perfectly okay for people, and I encourage people to talk about their grief and talk about their losses, and not to allow anyone to quiet their voice.
Absolutely. And no one tells you when it's time to stop grieving. And I've heard the same thing. I've heard people say the same thing to me. Well, how long's she been gone now? Are you ever going to get over it? I remember somebody said to me once, you keep 5 things you liked, have a dumpster come and take the rest of it away, and then you're done. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. I don't know who you've had relationships with, but no. So for me to continue, and I never realized at the time that because I didn't move into this house until 6. It didn't occur to me that living here in her space was part of that honoring. I never would have believed anybody if they told me that, but I just listened to spirit, and I got the message. You got to go back home. You got to go back home. And it was part of honoring her, of turning this house into what she always wanted it to be. at like a spiritual shrine, which I'm loving and I know she would love. And just it's part of the grief process, living with their memory and sharing their memory. It's all part of the grieving, but you can choose whether you want the grieving to be a positive thing or a
Exactly.
negative thing, right? But anybody who tells you it's time to let someone go, or aren't you over that yet, whether
Right.
it's grief over a living person or a dead person, those people don't have a right to make those decisions for you. And that's, to me, that's not somebody that I really want in my life, somebody who would say something like that to me.
Well, I agree. And I think that there's so many people struggling today with, whether it's depression or anxiety, and working through, different emotional challenges or mental health. So I think that you touched upon that, whether it's someone that's passed or not. I was still grieving the loss of a relationship, 20 years ago. And if I still felt I needed to talk about it, and I did, and it's fine. But you can still grieve something, or have a memory or a loss, so many years later, and it's perfectly fine. And it's fine today. And there's nothing wrong with it. And it's not a question of, well, you're still talking about this so many years later. It's reframed. It's talked about in a different way, but
absolutely.
I am, and it's okay. And we're okay. And it's perfectly fine.
And that's healing. Look, my best friend had cancer the same year my mom died. Mom died, dog died, best friend got cancer.
Oh,
and
God.
She's still processing. Luckily, she lived and she was good. And she's still good, but she's still processing what happened during that. And she can process that for as long as she needs to. Nobody has any right to tell anybody else how to process trauma or loss or grief. You don't have a right to tell someone else what to do. And it's anybody who's doing that is somebody who's not dealing with their own stuff.
Right.
So they're telling you not to deal with yours, in the same way that oftentimes addicts don't encourage their friends to get sober. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. Like, well, wow, you deal with it. Then what if I'm going to have to acknowledge there's still things in my life I haven't dealt with, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to put it on you. And I also think a lot of people, and everyone has a right to live this life any way they want, Isabel, but I think a lot of people just sort of close a lot of the doors and push through life. And they're not really stopping and experiencing and staying open and allowing things to move through them in the journey. And they're allowed to do that if they want. It's not how you learn all your spiritual lessons, but they're allowed to live from one fun thing to the next and not think in between. But it's really not a healthy way to live your life. We are meant to process the things that have gone on in our life, good and bad, and not just push them away. And I don't know if it's because I was taught by someone to do that, because my mom taught me how to do that, or the fact that I've never drank or done drugs or anything. I live in a constant state of sobriety, which is like having 17 eyes, like a fly. They're all looking in different directions. But I just think that as much as the pain moves through you, that's how you actually legitimately heal, right? And sometimes, like you said, a relationship 20 years ago, it'll just pop into your brain and you'll think, man, I'm not healed from that one thing yet. And you know what? That's okay, because that's part of how you grow and heal.
Right. I agree with you. And that's why when you mentioned pushing through things, I think sometimes it's easy. We become desensitized, in life. We just are on go mode. And we push through things. And so I think for me, I'm having to remind myself, slow down, let's get in alignment, let's not push through everything right now, let's regroup. Because I think it's easy when you're in grief mode and you've been on, let me take care of this, let me take care of that. You just stay in that forward motion. And sometimes you just need to maybe downshift a little bit and pay attention, because otherwise we will miss those moments, right? Those signs.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was just so glad I was so busy those 3 months, because all the things I couldn't have done, I just didn't have to do for the first 3 months, like deal with the house, walk in the house and look at everything. And you know what I mean? It kind of kept me occupied through the worst of it. And because so much was going on around me, I was allowed to emotionally be a little shut down inside and just living from the next busy thing to the next busy thing while a little time had passed. I think that was helpful for me. And then the summer came and I was like, oh, I got to deal with all this stuff. But, you know, it happens as I think you're a complete rock star. You're doing it beautifully. It took me 9 months to schedule my mom's memorial. No, 7 months to schedule my mom's memorial because I just couldn't do it. So the fact that you celebrated the celebration of life this quickly, you know, you're on it. I mean, you're doing a great job of dealing with it and accepting all the emotions and the things as they come and being receptive to your mom's messages from where she is. And tell me one thing, one last thing I want to ask you is, and this is a big one. So here we go. What do you hope you will have learned from this experience of loss and grief and learning to communicate with your mom in a different plane? How do you hope that will benefit you in your life moving forward? I warned you it was a biggie.
My mother. My mother and I had a complicated relationship. I think a lot of people may share that in regards to their parents, you know?
Sure.
Because I did have that nurturing, protective component. So I always had to have this armor on. So I'm hoping that now I can let that go. And I'll be able to embrace, I think, myself a little bit more authentically. And that's going to free up my relationship with her actually in a more authentic way too, because I don't have to be that protector to her anymore.
Yeah.
I can just be her daughter.
Yeah.
You know, so, and I think that with that, now I can really embrace those lessons and take those lessons and hopefully share them and be of service to others. Because before it was just, you know, it was like my mother had a career and she was successful. And so it wasn't that I had to, you know, provide for her in that regard. But I think that, you know, being the youngest, coming from a divorced family, having seen the hardship, I think that my mother had to go through from the youngest perspective, it was different. My perspective is different from my siblings. I was always protective of her. And I think now I can let that go. And our relationship can be just a little bit more simple. And I think that's going to free me up, you know, to take a lot of the good that I had with my mom and just be able to share that.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm so excited to see what's going to happen next. I think all of us that lose our moms were like, many of us that lose our moms, we're sort of like, you know, we're caterpillars. And then when we take care of them, we're like in the pupal stage and then we come out as butterflies. So I'm really excited to see how your butterfly flies and all the beautiful things you do with your voice. And I love you, my friend. And I appreciate you being here. And I'm so thankful for your presence in my life.
Well, thank you. And I'm very thankful for you. I appreciate you having me and for our share and, you know, look forward to seeing you and the next time.
And the next share. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful, Isabel Gallardo. Such a wonderful to have you here to speak about this fantastic topic. And I appreciate you doing it when I know it's so raw for you still. And you're a champion. And I appreciate you being here. I hope this resonated with some folks who were watching. If you want to get in contact with me for any reason, I'm at SheenaMetalSpiritual.com. You can book a session with me or just get to know me better. Send me a text message and we'll be text friends, 818-437-0886. And feel free to find me on social media everywhere at Sheena Metal. Thanks to my good friend, Tony Sweet, who is the owner and operator of Parapod TV and the brand new nonprofit earthly beings. He also owns UBN Go, the wonderful radio station, podcast station. I love you, my friend. Thanks for letting me be part of your creative family. And to my engineer and producer, Emery, who is the wind beneath my wings. What would I do without you, my friend? Thank you for being everything I'm not and for making this show run so beautifully. Thank you to my beautiful friend, Isabel, for being a guest today. And to all of you who are out there who are grieving right now, know that there is a service for you beyond this grief. And everything's going to be okay. All right. And remember that beautiful John Lennon quote, right? It's everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. So please always remember that. And remember to seek peace and live in love and lead with kindness and embrace unity and always work to raise your vibration and the vibration of others around you and the vibration of the everything. And most importantly, know that you are love. And you are loved, and you're loved by me. I'm Sheena Metal, and this is the Sheena Metal Experience, only on Parapod TV. And you know what? We'll see you next time. You take care of you.